conversation to get about water.
But she's doing great. That's the good news. Liz is doing great. I want to talk about just a few things. We're trying to keep this speech short. And then I'm going to take some questions. Let me just talk about a few things. Healthcare, we do desperately need universal health care in the worst kind of way in my view. And what I want to do is say to the Congress, the first day that I'm sworn in, that unless you pass universal health care by July of this year, then you're going to lose your health care. To my administration, same thing, because there's no excuse for politicians having health care when America doesn't have health care. And I think the health care plan we need, without going through all the details, I'll give you the basics. One, we need mandate covered by law for everybody. You have to be able to take your health care with you. If you get laid off, move, whatever, you always have your health care. That mental health is treated the same as physical health, mental health parity. We have no more pre-existing conditions. Preventive care, chronic care, and long-term care, all covered. And non-payment costs, I don't claim it's free, it costs $90 to $120 billion a year, but it's paid for by getting rid of the tax cut for people who make over $200,000. We also have some of the worst economic inequality we've had in America since the Great Depression. I mean, we're becoming a country made up of a few rich people and everybody else. That's not America. That's not who we are. And I think there are lots of things we can do about it. You know, to strengthen the middle class, to help lift families out of poverty. Let me go over just a few. One, the minimum wage finally got raised by the Congress. It's going to $7.25 an hour. It ought to be at least $9.50 an hour. It ought to be indexed to go up on its own. We ought to strengthen the right of unions to organize in the workplace so that they can collectively bargain. We ought to make it easier for kids who want to go to college, because what's happening right now is kids are, Bush is taking a bunch of money out of the federal budget to help kids get financial aid. What I want to do is something called College for Everyone, where we basically say to young people, if you graduate from high school and commit to work when you're in college, at least 10 hours a week, America will pay for your tuition and books at a state university or a community college. So that everybody Beyond that, I actually do think that global warming wasn't a thing for me. Global warming is real, and it's a crisis, it's a serious issue. I think we need to cap carbon emissions in America. We ought to bring the cap down every year, reduce our carbon emissions by at least 80% by the year 2050. I think we ought to make the polluters pay below the cap and use that money to install at least 30 billion. Use that money to invest in wind, solar, cellulose-based biofuel. I am not for building more nuclear power plants. I am not for building more coal-fired power plants. We ought to take at least $1 billion into making sure our car companies build the most fuel-efficient vehicles on the planet. Now, here's the most radical of my ideas. Instead of, I promise you this, I promise you that, as president, I want to say to America, we have to be willing to sacrifice together. It is the only way we can get to the place we need to go. Can we finally be patriotic about something other than war? What we do together matters. What we do in the national community matters. And so we're going to conserve in our homes, in our workplaces. We're going to drive more fuel-efficient vehicles. We're going to raise the fuel efficiency standard to at least 40 miles per gallon by the year 2016. I want to talk for a minute, though, about what we're seeing on our news every day, which is the war in Iraq and the situation in Iran. The war in Iraq. I think this war needs to be brought to an end. And I think the Congress has the power to do it. If they'll just use it. All they have to do is make sure that every bill that goes to the president for funding has a timetable for withdrawal. And if it doesn't, if he vetoes it, if they do it, he vetoes it, they ought to send it back. They'll send another bill back to him. If he vetoes that, they ought to do it again. They ought to keep doing it until he's forced to start withdrawing troops from Iraq. Because we have the power to make them do that. I have very detailed ideas about specifically what we should do in Iraq. I'm not going to do it now. Ask me about it. I'll be happy to go through it. But I do want to mention one other issue about Iraq. Because there are big differences between the Democrats and the Republicans on Iraq. No question about that. But there are also some differences between the Democrats, and you just need to be aware of them. We have a great field of candidates. But it depends on what matters most to you. I believe we need to end our combat missions in Iraq. That needs to come to an end. We need to get our combat troops out of Iraq. Now, just to be clear, I want to be clear because I don't want to mislead you. I do think we're going to have some relatively small number of troops there just to protect the embassy. Unless we're going to close the embassy. As long as the embassy is open, we can't leave embassy workers there without some protection. But those soldiers are not there to wage war. And they're not there to engage in combat missions. Did you follow that? That makes sense to you? So here's the difference that I have with Senator Clinton. Senator Clinton wants to keep combat troops stationed in Iraq over the long haul. And conduct, she would say limited, let's be fair, she would say limited combat missions against terrorists, I think is what she said. To me, ongoing combat missions are war. That's ongoing war. And the war is not over if you're still conducting combat missions. So, you have every right to agree with her. I just don't. I think if we're going to end the war, we need to actually end the war. And we need to stop combat missions. And I also think on the issue of Iran, there was a very, very important vote that took place last week, about a week and a half ago. Some of you may have followed it. The vote was on the floor of the Senate. You all see Bush rattling his saber about Iran. You know, he talked, we've heard this kind of talk before. And what the vote was whether to declare the Iranian Revolutionary Guard a terrorist organization. Now, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard is basically the closest thing to a state militia inside Iran. Now, who do you think wants to declare the Iranian Revolutionary Guard a terrorist organization? You got it. You got it. Now, I will tell you, I voted for the war in Iraq. I was wrong to vote for that war. I take responsibility for it. I learned a very important lesson. You need to learn when you do something wrong. And I've learned a very important lesson. I would not give this president an inch. I do not trust him, and he needs to be stopped. So I made it very clear what my position was on this. I have to give credit. Senator Dodd and Senator Biden voted against the resolution, which I think is the right thing to do. Senator Clinton voted for it. Now, I just, again, say this. You're entitled to make your choices. You may agree with them. You're entitled to agree with them. I just don't. I think that we have to be very, very careful about giving George Bush any authority, given how he behaved in Iraq, and given the way he talks about Iran. You remember their actions of evil? Yeah. Well, I don't trust this guy, and I would not give him an inch. So, that said, I'm going to stop. I'll be glad to take questions or anything you want to ask, or wherever y'all want to hands up. Just raise your hand, and if you don't mind, tell me your name.